Well, hello, guys and gals. Caleb here from thebookflipper.com. We're going to be walking you through another free spreadsheet I've put together to help you monitor what's possible in your Amazon business. So if you head to thebookflipper.com, we've got a recent article about a month, 6 weeks ago, give or take. It's called Monitor These Key Metrics, these 3 metrics to grow your Amazon FBA book business. Now, these metrics apply really to any inventory business. It doesn't have to be on Amazon, and it doesn't have to be books. Although that's primarily what I sell and where I sell it, so that's what we're going to talk about. But again, if you sell other products, you still may find some value there. So at the bottom of this article, there's a link to download the free spreadsheet that you can use to plug in your metrics and see what's possible for you. I've got it here. And what it is, we've set it up and you can plug in the variables in your business, anything that's green here, and we'll walk through what those are. And it'll actually spit out some estimates for year 1, 2, 3 as far as sales. And sales are important, they're fun to brag about, but ultimately what matters is cash flow, or what's coming back into your bank account, because that's what's going to pay the bills. So we'll actually show you, more importantly, what kind of cash flow or profits are potentially possible. We're not going to make any guarantees here. We'll show you what you can expect in your max weeks, and then kind of show you when your business will reach equilibrium, which is when you're sourcing as much as you're selling. So we'll kind of show you how that breaks down. Just a quick note before you jump in. Again, the link, if you want to download this spreadsheet first, will be in the comments below this YouTube video. Again, anything in green is editable or modifiable. If you're changing data and nothing's happening down below, so for example, if you set your starting inventory to 0 and these charts didn't update, you can either come up here into the formulas tab in Excel and hit up or calculate now, and that will update the formulas, or better yet, go ahead and change the calculation options, set them to automatic, and you'll be in business. Now, as you change data points, everything will update below sort of in real time. So what we've set up is you can put your starting inventory. So if you're just starting out, that's 0. If you've already got a business and you've got 500 books in inventory or 1,000, go ahead and plug your variables in to get a realistic expectation of what's possible. Now the 3 metrics, it's really 4, but the 3 main metrics you should care about are how many books you're listing per week. Recent inventory is going to be selling much faster. And the reason for that is you're sending books with really good sales ranks in, as well as you might be mispricing some inventory as well, and might be selling it faster than you wanted to, but it's not that big a deal at the end of the world as long as you're making a healthy profit. So books listed, this is what you put into the top of the funnel. The turn rate per week, or what percent of your inventory is selling. So if you have 100 books in inventory and you sell 10 of them in 1 week, that's 10%. A good metric to shoot for is about 15 to 20% per month. I've looked at dozens of sellers, particularly Amazon FBA booksellers in the US, and even in some of the slower months, they're typically hitting right around 15%. Faster months can be significantly more. If you're textbook heavy, I've seen people sell as much as 50 or 60% of their inventory in a single month. But in a general rule, you should be doing that about 15 to 20% a month, which would correlate to 4 to 5% per week. So you could change that number, and you should be monitoring it. We like to look at things in quarters or months or years, but I like to break it down into weeks because that gives you bite-sized chunks. So step 1 is, what are you filling the funnel with? Are you able to find, source, and list X amount of books per week? Step 2 is, are you actually selling them? Are you pricing them appropriately? Are people finding your items and buying them? And then step 3 is, are you actually making a profit? If you're selling books somewhere in the $10 price range, you're not going to make a lot of profit. You can see the profit basically disappears. The way that Amazon's fees are now for FBA, $10 books, you're only going to net between $2 and $3, maybe $4 tops. You really want to be sticking around, unless you're a bulk seller, you want to be sticking in the $15 to $20 to $25 range. So those are the 3 metrics you should be monitoring. What are you filling the funnel with? Step 2, are you selling the books? And step 3, are you selling them for healthy margins? The 4th metric that somewhat plays a little bit of a role is your average buy cost. If you're selling $20 books, but you're spending $10 per book, again, you're not going to be making much money, even though your sales might look really good. So you can be a 6-figure seller in year 3. You can sell $100,000 worth of books, but your profit's very little. So controlling your buy costs is very good. Now, that said, if you are spending 10 and selling them for 35, you can sell closer to 200 grand and actually earn closer to 70 grand in cash flow. Profits will be slightly different. We're looking at what cash flow would be, so how much cash comes back into your pocket or your business, and that's ultimately what matters. So again, you can play around with the variables. Again, we've challenged people, and we're in the middle of a 100-book weekly challenge, and we've got Matthew and John. If you want to follow along with their stories, you can see those on my channel as well. And 100 books is their target. Their average buy cost is somewhere between $1 and $2. We can plug in $1.50. Inbound shipping, it'll depend on where you live. We're out in the middle of nowhere in Denver. There's not a lot of warehouses close to us. Most of our books get shipped down to either Chicago or primarily Texas. So the inbound shipping per book, usually it's about 30 to 35 cents. I've put 40 just to be conservative. Again, turn rate could be as high as 5% a week, which would be closer to 20% a month. We're going to stick with 4%, which gets us closer to that 15% monthly. And then average selling price, they're both in the $20 to $22 range, I believe. John may be a hair smaller. But again, let's walk through what the numbers are and then show you how you can edit them yourself. So if you were able to find 100 books a week at an average buy cost of $1, if you're able to consistently sell 4% of your inventory a week and you keep feeding the beast at $20, year one, you're going to sell just under 62 grand worth of books and profit or cash flow roughly 24 grand. So not a bad start. Year two, as you sort of build up your inventory, you'll sort of max out. You'll see that there's a big jump between year 1 and 2, but not so much from 2 to 3. You'll get close to 6 figures and you'll earn 45 grand, which I believe the average household income in the US is somewhere around 45 to 50. So if you can do that in books, and again, depending on how long it takes you to find and list 100 books a week, you may not even be working full time depending on how you set that up. So that's what's possible there. Let's walk through some of the other metrics. Your max sales a week, if you only ever got 4%. And again, these numbers aren't going to be perfect. Your turn rates may be a little bit slower in some of the slower months, and they may be significantly higher. We're going to assume that everything is nice and equal and steady, which is just not the case in business. But your max sales in a week would be $2,000. And again, we're not factoring in textbook season here. Your max profit or your cash flow in a week would be just shy of $1,000. And again, $1,000 a week for 52 weeks would get you close to 52 grand of total profit or cash flow. And we're not quite at $1,000, which is why we're just a little under 50. Total cash required, this is a little bit misleading. This is assuming the inbound shipping is based on what you have here. It's also assuming you start selling your inventory right away. It probably is going to be double or triple this, as stuff takes a little bit to sell, and there's a little bit of a lag between when you send it to FBA or Amazon's warehouses and when it starts selling. And your max inventory required, new sellers used to be capped at 5,000. They still are. When the new inventory rules kick in, or the long-term storage fees kick in 2018 in August and September, the 5,000 units actually goes away. And as long as you keep Amazon happy and your metrics look good, your inventory metrics, you can actually put as much inventory as you want. But this would show you what your max inventory would look like in order to achieve these numbers. And the reason why is it's eventually going to equalize, or you'll reach equilibrium. So you can see here, you can check how many units you're listing a week, and the numbers down here are by week. We've got 2 years or 104 weeks showing, and you can see the units sold. And again, if you're selling 4% of your inventory a week, you're going to list 100, you're going to sell 4 in the first week. If you list another 100 the next week, you're going to sell probably closer to 8. It'll be 7 point something because you've got less than 200 in inventory. But you can see over time that ramps up, and eventually you'll be replacing what you list every week. You'll be selling what you list. You'll eventually reach equilibrium where if you continue to source 100 books, you'll basically be selling those same 100 each week. Sales and profit, you can see the sales per week will go up and eventually level off. And again, we saw that that would be somewhere in the $2,000 per week. You can see the profit or the cash flow per week sort of levels off in the $900 range. So that's what the metrics are. And again, you can change these. Let's say you do the exact same. You do 100 books a week and you're able to sell 5%. You can see you reach 6 figures your second year. Again, at some point, you're going to reach that equilibrium. If you're only sourcing 100, at some point, that 5% of your inventory is going to be selling, replacing what you're listing, and you only have so much room you can grow. So let's just do a crazy example. Let's say you're able to sell 10% of your inventory a week. Again, you'll notice that your sales go up quicker, especially in year one, but you're going to reach a theoretical max where, again, you're replacing what you're finding. So you'll see the equilibrium catches up much faster versus if you're only able to sell 2% a week, for example, it's going to ramp up much more slowly over time, but your theoretical max is the same. So you can play with the variables. Again, I'd put 3, 4, or 5% as good conservative figures. And you could say, hey, Caleb, I can find 100 books a week, no problem. What about 200? You can see what that would do to your business. And you could actually get to where you're actually generating close to 100 grand of profit a year if you're able to do that consistently. Or if you say, hey, I can only do 100 books a week, but I'm really good at finding great inventory and I'm going to sell $25 books, you can see what that does. If your buy costs is controlled, you can get that down to, let's say, 50 cents. Again, you can play with the variables as much as you want. We've then got a weekly tracker. You can plug in whatever start date you want. If you're starting today, it is April 11. You can go ahead and plug that in. Everything will update. We've staggered everything by a week, so we assume that you're starting here. You're going to probably get some sales your first week, although realistically it may take an extra week. So you may want to stagger that. Let's say you start on 4/11, you actually might want to plug in 4/18 just to allow for one extra bonus week. This will show you then on 4/25 if you had inventory in stock. If you had 100 units in stock, you should have sold 4 units that week. You can actually track how many you sold. Let's say you did 3. It'll tell you you're over or under your goal and give you a cumulative total. The next week you're supposed to sell 8. Let's say you sell 6. It'd help if I plugged in the right spot. If you sold 6, you'd be 2 under that week, 3 under lifetime. Let's say the next week is really good. You sell 20 books. You're 8 units over for that week. You're 5 units over cumulatively. So that'll give you a nice idea. It'll also show you what you should be selling. Again, we're assuming you're selling $25 books, which may be a little high. We can go back to 20. At a 4% turn, you should sell 4 books at $20 a piece. You should be selling 80 bucks. And again, you can plug your figures in here. Let's say you're at 70. It'll show you you're over or under your goal. Matthew's going to be sharing his numbers on his YouTube channel as well. We'll probably put a link down below. And he's about 6 weeks in right now, and his numbers are actually almost identical to where they should be. So it's kind of fun to see how the plan comes together. And then you can see over time, halfway through the year, 6 months in, you should be selling roughly $1,300 a week. And your target actual payouts from Amazon, you could track those as well. So that's how the spreadsheet works. And again, if you want to nerd out or play with the calculations, you can see how they all factor in here. Don't mess around with too much on this screen. You should just be adjusting anything in green. There's just 6 variables. If you want to just read some of the variables, you can see some of the metrics I've pulled from other people and what are typical buy costs, typical inbound shipping, that sort of thing. So you can kind of play around with those, and that is a spreadsheet. So again, go to thebookflipper.com, look for the 3 metrics you should be tracking article, and there's a link to download this spreadsheet for free. You can pitch into my coffee fund or my diaper fund if you would prefer, or you can just download it for free, and I hope it's useful in your business. Thanks so much for watching.